Hello everyone, my name is Herman Kuntscher of Carlsquare Equity Research. I'm standing here today with the CEO of Bentley Endovascular Group AB, Sebastian Büchert. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Herman. Pleasure to be here.
So, Sebastian, you seem to have everything aligning and you're having an IPO. What will you do with the money from the IPO? What will you do with the proceeds?
Yeah, so actually it's various things where we are going to use the money for. Firstly, we want to acquire land and buildings from Lars Sunanveder to ensure the long-term availability for our growth plans. Secondly, we want to finish the acquisition of the BBAC catheter that we acquired from an Israeli startup. Thirdly, we want to integrate the company Qmedics and we need to pay for it. Fourthly, we're expanding to the US. We will need some proceeds for that. And then fifthly, we want to expand to the field of interventional radiology and build up a complete portfolio for that customer group, and that's also what we need the money for.
Mm. And you mentioned the US. I noticed that you're doing very well in Canada. Would you say that Canada can be viewed as a proxy for the US? Is that indicative of how it will go later?
So you're a business analyst, you seem to do your job well, so it's true, we're doing really well in Canada, and I need to add that our products are not freely available there. We have something called special access, which means that physicians can only get access to our products if they argument for every single stent that they use why they want to use the Bentley instead of a product that is freely available. And despite that bureaucratic hurdle, we've been able to become market leaders within 1 year, and that certainly makes us very confident for the quite comparable US market, where our products will become freely available as of 2027, being even indicated as the first and only product to do bridging stent prosthesis operations.
Yes, and that's very good. You mentioned the bureaucracy. I noticed that it's an increase in legislation, making it harder to launch new medical devices. How would you say this impacts you?
Well, actually, I had my learning in the 29 years of medical devices, while 20 years back I was complaining about those legislation always getting harder and the hurdles getting higher. And there was a point in my career about 12, 15 years ago when I was working for a leading manufacturer for diagnostic instruments. And whenever we launched a new product, it took only a couple of weeks until we saw a picture of our product on the website of a Pakistani or Indian manufacturer saying, coming soon. And that taught me that it's nowadays that you have those copy manufacturers that are able to make a copy of your product, but what they're still lacking is the ability to get the international approvals because those hurdles are so high. And that is the good thing about it, that the legislation, yes, it's quite burdensome, but at the same time, it's the same for all the manufacturers. So if you're able to overcome that hurdle better than your competitors, you have another differentiating factor. And that's what we're trying to use at Bentley, that we are being extremely good in that field. We invested heavily, but it's starting to play off. While we learned from our notified body that there will be nearly no innovation in the coming years because all the manufacturers had to focus their capacities on getting their existing product range approved for the new legislation. Bentley will be launching 4 new products in the coming 2 years, and that should give us quite some competitive advantage.
Yes, sounds like you really have the first mover advantage there. How would you say, since you mentioned it, clinical evidence and clinical trials, how important are they in your market?
They certainly are very important. We are in a relatively new field, the endovascular treatment of our aortic diseases, but also peripheral diseases is something where we're still seeing development, and certainly it's clinical evidence that shows us the pathway where to move to, and it also shows us where we can still improve, and that's what we're trying to make use of at Bentley. We're investing heavily into R&D and into approval of products. So just to give you a number, we currently have 300 employees. Out of that, 100, so 1/3 is concentrated on the development of new products and getting them approved for the markets. So this is a very strong commitment for the future that Bentley will not only be leading today, but also in the future.
Yes, and speaking about the future and maybe perhaps a longer timeline, how will you be able to stay on your very healthy-looking trajectory that you have right now when we talk about financials, when we talk about margins and cash flow? I understand that it can be quite hard to maintain those things when you move into new geographies. So how will you stay on that trajectory?
So the thing is that yes, we are in an environment where you need a lot of money in order to get innovation. But then usually you also get quite a good price for the innovation, so you can recuperate the money you invested. In order to ensure that for the future, you need to drive innovation. And that is something that we are constantly doing to make sure that we have enough competitive advantage to the benefit of the patient to ensure we can get a reimbursement for our products that allows us to continue to invest into geographical expansion, into product expansion, and into acquisitions if necessary.
Yes, and speaking about moving into perhaps new areas, where do you see a possible next step besides, you mentioned before that you're moving into radiography. Where do you see possible next steps in terms of perhaps structural growth with acquisitions or maybe moving into new clinical areas?
Yeah. So actually our products have been developed to reopen occluded vessels, calcified vessels. But we learned in the last 10 years that they are predominantly being used as bridging stents in complex aortic surgery. What we're now doing is we're getting the indication for that because there is no company who has the scientific approval that the products are being, are working in that field. So we have already conducted a study, we have finished the enrollment of the patients, and we are positive that in the year 2025 we will be the first company globally to get the indication as a bridging stent. Whilst we then finally get the approval for what our products are predominantly being used for, we also want to ensure that they are being used in what they have been developed for. And therefore we acquired the BBAC catheter from Israel, which is very complementary to our products. And we are also now making or completing the product portfolio through the acquisition of Qmedics. So we have a full range of products for interventional radiologists that are usually treating from the hip downwards to the legs. And being able to offer a full range of products, which quite some competitive advantages, we are very positive that we can be successful with that customer group as well.
Yeah, it sounds like there will be a lot of synergies between those different products. So now that we have gone through maybe some of the good things that are going on and your future timelines, what would you say are some short-term hurdles that you need to pass? And what are the biggest problems that you face right now that you need to overcome?
Well, you know, the product range we acquired with Qmedics is rather huge. And some of the products are really commodities where there is not a sufficient margin on them anymore. So what we're currently really digging into is which of the products shall switch to Bentley to enhance and complete our product range. That is something that we're currently doing, and then certainly that also comes along with some regulatory hurdles and some logistic hurdles. We need to prepare our warehouses for that, but these are all things we will certainly have under control.
Yeah, and I know that you make good use of key opinion leaders in markets that are very important to you. How does this strategy synergize with all the developments that are going on at Bentley with the Qmedics and with moving into the US in the future? How will you keep using the key opinion leaders?
Yeah. So actually, key opinion leaders does play a very important role in our field because it's a very small field. So just to give you an example, in Germany, we maybe have 50 centers doing complex aortic surgery. In such a big country, in Sweden, it's 5 to 8. And so they know each other. And then certainly there are some that are more experienced, that do more cases. And the others, they look at them and see how are they doing it and benefit from their experience. Now, at Bentley, we've always been aware of that. And 6-7 years ago, I remember a picture that we drew with 15 pictures of such leading international key opinion leaders. And at that time, we said, well, if one day we would have 3 out of those 15 to talk positively about Bentley products, that would be a success. Today, if I look at that picture, I can sometimes hardly believe it because we have pretty much all of them becoming Bentley fans. And that is not because we engage them as speakers, that's because they are convinced that our products are doing a great job and because they also like the services behind them, like the delivery reliability. And so they are really important multiplicators for us to expand into other markets, to expand to new clinics. And that's something that we will also leverage on in the future.
Mm. And your products that these key opinion leaders really like, you could perhaps label them as being, high quality, high price. How would you say that positioning is conducive for you in this market? Is that a good positioning to have, and how will you evolve that going forward? Will you remain in that position, or?
Well, we also have the responsibility towards patients. So we are always trying to price position our product at a point where we can ensure that patients can receive the treatments that they need. We're not speaking about countries now like Sweden, but maybe rather third world countries where also patients are in need of products. And so at the same time, while ensuring that we have our ethical responsibility met there, we certainly also need to ensure that we earn sufficient margins to be able to reinvest into further developments to the benefit of patients, because they can receive better treatments, faster treatments in the future.
Yeah, and you mentioned there the third world countries where perhaps it's harder to come by quality products. How would you say that if I am an investor, how would I value that market? How would I approach looking at that market? Because do you assume that every possible patient can receive the treatment, or how do you view those markets, basically?
You see, it really varies. I mean, the technology that you need to treat a patient endovascularly is quite expensive. So you need a very highly advanced X-ray equipment, which is in the range of 1.5 million euros maybe. So certainly that is not available in every small town hospital. But we see that it's a technology that becomes available more broaden, and we generally see an aging population also into third world countries. And the older patients get, the more likely they will suffer from vascular diseases. So we have demographic factors that will lead to more patients in the future, and therefore certainly also those countries will require more of our stents in the future.
All right, and that's all the questions I have. Thank you very much, Sebastian.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.